Hey guys, welcome to the show. 888-659-3727. Great to be here live from Los Angeles, as usual. Live from my home studio here in LA. You are watching and listening to The Bald Show. The Bald Show. TBT, The Bald Truth. Now, for you guys who are just tuning in for the first time and you've never heard this broadcast, you've never seen me on the air before, and you're wondering what the F am I tuning into? Well, I'll tell you who I am and why I'm here, and then we'll get right to the broadcast. I'm a consumer advocate for men and women dealing with hair loss. I'm the author of The Bald Truth and The Truth About Women's Hair Loss, two of the most read, actually the most read books on the subject of the prevention and treatment of hair loss currently in the world. I guess it's a pretty big deal. Also the founder of the American Hair Loss Association. I'm a guy who has been dealing with hair loss for a very long time, over 2 decades. And if you're tuning in for the first time, you're like, wait a second, this guy's got hair in his head. It's important that you know that this is a partial sham, that I am wearing a ton of hairspray, that I have a quasi comb over, and I'm wearing some paint in the back of my head to cover my balding areas or my thinning areas. And that's just the way that I choose to live my life. You know, while I wasn't equipped to deal with hair loss when it first started, I'm still not fully equipped to deal with it. I did whatever I could to stop the progression of my hair loss. I was lucky enough to get my hands on an FDA-approved drug, which was not FDA-approved at the time for hair loss, which is now FDA-approved. It's called Propecia, and it worked for me. It stopped my hair loss. It slowed the progression for many, many years. And, you know, during that time, I was doing, and if you could hear my dog panting, it's hilarious. It's so hot in the studio. He's hanging out with me. You know, during that time, during the initial throes of my hair loss, and again, this is for you new folks, you know, I was just like you. I was the guy who was just not equipped to deal with it, who was looking for any possible option that was available to me. And frankly, there wasn't much. And really not that much has changed. Now, you have to understand, I started to lose my hair back in like 86, 87, a very long time ago. A lot of you guys weren't even born. And back then, that was literally the dark ages of hair loss. And certainly the dark ages of the hair loss industry. That's what I should be saying. Now there are real options out there. There really are. But I was lucky enough to find an option that worked for me. I did my research and I realized that the industry is shit. And frankly, for the most part, it still is. 2/3 of you as guys will be dealing with hair loss by the age of 35. 40% of hair loss sufferers are women. And that's just the way that it is. And all of you who are dealing with hair loss, at least at one point, are going to try to find something to help yourselves. Now, a lot of you guys, you know, a decent percentage of you guys will come to terms with it and move on. You're the lucky ones. But most people, or a lot of guys, and women especially, aren't that lucky. They're not equipped to deal with it. And they need our help. That's what this broadcast is all about. Now, we got phone calls on the line already, so I will take your calls tonight. Don't worry. If you have any questions or concerns about your hair loss, this is your safe place. There's nothing to sell. I'm not selling anything. If you notice, you know, I mention my books as my credentials, you know, as part of my credentials, but I don't have commercials for my books. I'm not telling you guys to go to an Amazon link to buy any crap. I don't sell T-shirts or mugs. You're not going to see any advertising on this broadcast. And a lot of you guys are probably like, well, how do you make money? How do you support this broadcast? Well, there's a lot of ways. But the one way that I've chosen not to make money through this broadcast is to mire you guys, mire this broadcast, just, you know, fill it with advertising. This is a platform for men and women to deal with hair loss. This is your safe place. This is a support group, an on-air and online support group. And why I'm approached practically on a weekly basis to accept advertising for this program. And I mean within the context of the program, within the program itself. I choose not to. I don't want to cause any confusion out there. I'm not here to sell you any products or services. I'm not here to sell surgery. I'm here to guide you in the safest possible direction when it comes to anything and everything hair loss. And that's it. Now, before I get to your calls, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that, I think a lot about. And I'm bringing this subject up because I had a conversation with a buddy of mine who I actually grew up with. He's a childhood friend, a guy that I've known for much of my life. And he has recently, he purchased a property on the East Coast, and he's building a home from scratch. Found the perfect lot of land and decided to build, him and his wife decided to build their dream home. Now, this is a project that's been going on for a while now, a little over a year. And every time I speak to this guy about this project, about this dream that him and his wife have, all he is doing is complaining. And he's upset. Things aren't going the way he thought they would go. There's issues with the designers and the architects and the, issues with the land itself, issues with licensing and all kinds of shit that you have to deal with when you decide to build your own home. Now, I have my own issues with home ownership, and, I have, while I've certainly, owned property, I personally think for most Americans, that American dream is really the dream for the National Association of Realtors. A lot of times, it's just, especially if you have to take out a mortgage, it's just a noose around your neck. But if you're building your own home from scratch, the amount of time, energy, and money that goes into a project like that, to me, is not a dream. Now, this guy may be listening to the broadcast now, but he knows how I feel about it, and I'm sure he's fine with me talking about it. Now, when I talk to him, he's talking about, how the land will eventually, it's an asset, and the home that they're building on the land will be an asset. So in 10 years or 12 years, if they decide to scale down, downsize, they'll be able to sell those assets, potentially at a profit. And at least they'll always have that. And I'm thinking to myself, and I think about this all the time, what are my most valuable assets? And to me, my most valuable assets are my time and my health. And the amount of time that people spend on worrying about bullshit, worrying about what this poor guy has to deal with, the sleepless nights and the extra money and the going beyond budget and dealing with assholes and contractors, that is time that he will never get back. And while he may eventually have an asset, which in my view will not be as valuable as he thinks that it is, especially if you're living in that home for 10 years and you're dealing with, even if it's a new home, there's still going to be maintenance and issues and things that you don't even realize, property tax and all kinds of shit. Time is your most valuable asset, and your health. And the reason I'm relating it to this broadcast is all the guys out there who are so consumed with their hair loss, and I'm one of them. We have all lost so much of our time, so much of our valuable time that we will never, ever get back. I lost my 20s. My 20s went, it was a haze of booze and broads and just, doing whatever I could to make myself feel better and forget that I was dealing with hair loss at a young age. And I had the wherewithal to concentrate and build a career throughout all of that, but I still was unhappy. And I still wasted so much time. Instead of just focusing on the positive aspects of what I can do for myself, I was crippled emotionally. And I see what's happening day in and day out. I read the forums before I do the broadcast. I see the same guys on the forums, day in and day out, spending so many hours battling each other, discussing these issues, discussing things that may never come to fruition. And I think about the valuable asset that they're losing, that's diminishing with every day they're wasting on that forum. And I got to tell you, it's great. Listen, it's great for business. You guys want to bring more traffic to the forum? I'm all for it. But I have to tell you guys the truth. And the truth is, we only have one life. Hair loss sucks. It consumes us to a certain degree, but it doesn't have to completely take over your life. You can find a way to get through it. You can find a way to figure it out, whether it's wearing a hairpiece or getting a hair transplant, or if you're lucky enough to do well on drugs, or, have a combination of all of the above, or do what I do. And I take drugs and I take a drug for my hair loss, and I paint my head and I wear a ton of hairspray and I just hope for the best. And I guess, I hope I was clear making that correlation, but I'm thinking about this guy. I'm thinking about it all the time. And this guy, he's a little younger than I am. I've known him most of my life. He's a brother of a kid that I actually grew up with. And I think to myself, like, God, you're unhappy right now. You're supposed to be building this dream home, but it's taking up so much of your time that you're never going to get back. Even if the house comes out perfectly. Now you're worrying about money. So the bottom line, in my view in life, is really to understand what your real assets are. What do you really value in life? Look, I like money. I'm a capitalist. You guys know that. But I work hard to do what I do for my freedom so that I could have time, so that I don't have to work for some schmuck, so that I can do, make my own hours and do what I need to do. And honestly, I've had opportunities to work for big companies and make even more money. I've chosen not to because I value my independence and I value my time and I value my most valuable asset. And that's my time. 888-659-3727. I hope that made sense to you guys, but I was just thinking a lot about that, especially when it comes to hair loss and all the time that we all waste that we're never going to get back, and I'm guilty of that as well. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from? Hey, man, you're on the air. I could hear myself on your computer. Who's this? All right. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Hello, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Can you hear me? All right. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Can you hear me?
Hey, this is Tim from Boston.
I'm sorry?
It's Tim from Boston.
Tim from Boston. How are you, man? I could hardly hear you. I think you have. Are you on a cell phone?
No, yeah, I'm on a cell phone right now.
Okay, you're coming in better right now. What's happening, man?
No, I was just listening in. I haven't called in a while. I hope I'm not infringing on Joe calling in. I know he usually calls in first.
No, you're not, man. We have a full board, so I'm glad you made it through. So what's up?
No, I just I found it interesting what you said about kind of like wasting your life away, worrying about it, worrying about your hair loss, consuming yourself with it. And, I'm in my 20s. I'm going to be 26 on Saturday. And
well, happy birthday, by the way. And your phone tonight really sucks. Maybe can you walk into a different area? Maybe.
I'm currently on the road. It's
Okay.
unusual. I'm in the city, so you'd think it'd be coming in well.
All right. Let me try to raise your volume and see if we can get you to be a little more clear. Go ahead.
Is that better?
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Okay. And I just thought it was interesting because, yeah, you can spend your whole life consuming yourself with something, that you really have no control over. There's very little control over what's happening. I think that's the big thing, is this loss of control. Not only can't control what's going on the top of your head, but as a balding man, and just reading that, I don't post on the forum, but I read some of the guys' messages, and they're guys that are worried about the control they're going to have in terms of finding somebody, or getting a job, or something along those lines.
Well, that's exactly what it is. We all fear this loss of control, and hair loss is that's a tremendous metaphor for loss of control in our lives. That's a reality. We have very little control, except for we do have medication currently that could help us, and we obviously have hair transplants, or you can take control by wearing a hairpiece. But as far as the process happening, we have very little control over it. And it's frightening for people. It's frightening because they don't know what's going to happen. We're brought up to believe that we grow up, we work hard, we go to school, we get a good job, we meet a nice girl, we get married, we have children, and we're kind of taught that there's some modicum of control there. But the truth is there isn't. Even if you're not dealing with hair loss, there's other fucking issues that you have to deal with. So everything really is up in the air, and you kind of just have to learn to go with the flow instead of trying to control everything.
Right. It's true, and the issue with me, and I think the reason why it bothers me to even a little bit of a degree, is that I'm a bit of a control freak. In college, I studied accounting, and I was I'm somebody who's obsessed with fine details. And right now, I'm going back to school and I'm studying molecular chemistry.
Oh wow!
So, I'm somebody who's a little bit. I think you have to be a little bit crazy,
Well, listen, I think you have, you obviously have an analytical mind, and you're able to focus in a way that a lot of people just, are incapable of focusing. But when you're at that level and you have the intelligence that you obviously have to kind of go in this direction, I mean, I'm not going to say you're crazy, but there can be, an OCD component and some other issues involved. And I certainly have that as well. And
I was just going to say, I know, I don't have any problem disclosing it, that I do have, and I've had obsessive compulsive disorder even before I had, knew about hair loss. It was evident, when I was entering high school, that I just, that's the way I am. It's how I react to stress.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has it to some degree, but for some people it's different things. So
well, it's been in my life. It has been debilitating. I speak from experience. I talk to you guys about this stuff because I have dealt with it and dealt with the emotional issues related to hair loss and everything else that I talk about. And I've lived a longer life, and I've been around obviously for a while, and I really have been able to overcome a lot. It is possible, even if you are saddled with these emotional issues. I had, obsessive compulsive disorder, well before I began losing my hair. And when I started to lose my hair, it obviously made things, it was that much, I was that much more hyper focused than somebody else. And that's why I do what I do today, because if I wasn't that way, I might not have, I might have been able to kind of come to terms with it.
Right.
Right away.
And I guess I just feel like you're right. You can, you're saying it, you can just, you had the wherewithal to make a career out of something, to make a living out of something. But, I think a lot of guys out there, are just, missing out on opportunities, man. And I have to say that, there's probably been times where, I've limited myself because of my hair loss, or I, put myself down, or I'm not good enough to do this, or what's the point in doing this because, if you don't have the whole package, what's the point? But if you have that attitude,
but that's the typical. That's a very typical attitude. It's not as though it's something that's atypical. So you can't make yourself. You can't feel bad about it because it's very normal. It really is.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have OCD, that's a very normal outlook, especially for a younger guy who's feeling like their life and their attractiveness is eroding with their hairline. And in some cases it is, because we're allowing it to. And the truth of the matter is, no matter what people say, most guys will look better with a full head of hair, especially when you're young. That's just the way that it is. So it's not an easy thing to deal with. So you can't feel bad about feeling the way that you do. You just have to figure out a way to come to terms with it and get past it.
And I think the other thing too is you have to realize that everybody's fade, everybody's physical appearance fade. If it's not your hairline, it's your skin, or it's something. So
everybody. You said fades or is fake?
Yeah, your looks are going to fade.
Oh, they are.
Nobody's immune to it, and so I think if anything, losing your hair sort of at a young age, guys in their teens, 20s, even their 30s. I think there's an understanding, that you come to that realization earlier. And if you can meet somebody who has that same sort of outlook, and it can be a girl who's very attractive. If you can meet somebody who has that sort of attitude, and realizes, that it's an impermanent thing and that you shouldn't really get used to it, and that you should develop other parts of yourself before relying on that, that's somebody you want to be with. The person you don't want to be with is somebody who can't get past, your physical appearance.
Well, a line that I always use in my life, in my career, and I even posted it on Facebook the other day, is everything on life is on loan. And if you live your life like that and really understand that, then you're going to have an easier time with a lot of things. I talk about my time and my health as my greatest assets in my life. And I really believe that, because my time and my health are on loan. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to walk around the way that I do and play basketball and work out and do the things that I can and fuck and do everything that I'm still able to do and see and hear. Right. And that could, some of that could be taken away tomorrow. I could wake up and I could be blind, or I could be deaf, or I could be impotent, or I could, whatever, and we take it all for granted. And it sounds like, it sounds a little hokey when, sometimes when you hear people saying this, but it's the truth, man. It's the truth. And as you get older, you start to realize, holy shit, I am so lucky that I have enough hair to create this comb over. I am so lucky that I wake up in the morning with wood. I am so lucky that, I can live the life that I live. And I built a life for myself. And that's how I live my life. But it's all on loan. It's all bullshit. In the end, you're just going to be, calling some Jamaican woman, mommy. And, someone's going to be wiping your drool. And that's it. It doesn't matter how much money you made. It doesn't matter when you started to lose your hair. Yeah. What matters is how you lived your life.
Right. You better enjoy it.
That's exactly right, man. And listen, if you want, try to call back later, because I'm really having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, I'll call back later in the show. I'll be home soon. So.
Okay, good. Give us a call back. I always appreciate your call, man.
All right.
All right, take it easy. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, man, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Andrew.
Andrew, what's happening?
What's going on, man?
Just doing a little show here.
I haven't called the show in months.
Well, what's going on? How are you?
Not bad. I went out to the bar. I came back. Jess and I are listening to the show.
And do you have something to add, or you just want to call and say hi?
No, I wanted to call in because, you guys were talking about hair loss, of course, and one of my friends, he recently discovered that he's suffering. And I gave him all this advice, and he did not listen to me, and he went for a second opinion.
Right.
I think you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, the guy that went to a second opinion he contacted me for a second opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, come on. He has access to me. I can understand why he would do that.
But here's my thing with this, and this speaks volumes about about people in the audience and everybody else that's suffering from this. They don't want to come to terms with this, and everybody still believes it. And it's amazing to me, considering the fact that you've been doing this for 15 years,
17 years, but who's counting?
17 years, and there's so much positive information on Ball True Talk, and there's so much. There's so much information out there that people still hope that there is an elixir, that there is a potion that will grow their hair back.
Look, dude, I'm still hoping. Okay, but in all honesty, I get it. But what I found interesting is that this guy has kind of he's known me for at least 5 years or more, and he was asking me questions about hats and asking me questions about like the typical novice to hair loss questions,
Yeah,
and
what does Rogaine do? What does Propecia do?
Well,
break my dick?
Yeah, he has access to the program. He has access to you. He has access to me. And, and listen, I'm fine with it. I want to help the guy. And he's a great guy. But it just goes to show you that, people, when it comes to hair loss, unless they become panicked about it, unless they, sometimes it takes them a while. They're like in denial. Now, this guy has been in Norwood for several years.
About 7 years, yeah.
I don't know about that long, but for a while, I've definitely seen,
he's been suffering for a long time.
The slow progression.
I was thinking about this week, and I was thinking about how is it in 2014 you could still think that the facts are not the facts, and there's something that people have not discovered, right? There's some Brazilian root in the Amazon that we haven't found yet, but this company on the internet has discovered, and that's going to grow your hair back. But if you think about it, look at Steve Jobs. Today I did an entire thing about Apple, and we did like 5 hours on the Apple iPhone event.
Right.
This guy died because he thought he had figured out some holistic cure to his cancer.
I don't know if that's why he died. I just think that he went in that direction. He probably, when you have pancreatic cancer, and that's what he had, right?
Yeah, pancreatic cancer.
Yeah. I mean, that's really a death sentence. Very few people come out of that with conventional treatment. So,
but he had the type that was curable, that was almost 100% curable.
That I didn't know. I didn't know there was a type.
Out 1% that had the type of pancreatic cancer. It was discovered to the point that it was 100% curable. But he thought that some guy in Norway had discovered a way to do it without going through the regular means. The same thing has to do with hair loss. A lot of these guys hang on to the fact that they think there's something that has not been discovered. And this guy that contacted you this week, and I was thinking about it all week, I sat down with him for about 2 to 3 hours, and I gave him every possible option that he has. And he still thought there was something other than what I told him that will bring back his hair.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, he actually did end up going and getting a prescription for finasteride from his doctor. So obviously that was after he spoke with you. And then he wanted to ask me about it. So if it makes you feel any better, he took your advice.
I mean, I pretty much told the guy, I'm like, listen, you have two options. One, you go on finasteride and you stop the hair loss from happening further. And I gave him the Spencer line. I said, if your hair stopped falling out right now, are you happy with it?
Right.
And he said, yes. I said, okay, go on finasteride, see if it works for you. And then he said, what can I do after that? I go, pretty much nothing, unless you want to get a hair transplant.
Right, but the truth is he still has enough hair, and I explained to him, I said, cut your hair short because it's really long now. It's going to make it look thinner. You cut your hair short, it's going to look a hell of a lot fuller. If you can keep what you have, you're going to be happy. He's in his 30s now, right? So, I mean...
he's 30 years old. Yeah.
He doesn't have to do anything after that, especially if he does well on finasteride. But he did take your advice. Don't think he didn't take your advice. He definitely took your advice because by the time he spoke to me, he had already filled the prescription. He just kind of wanted to get some more information about the prescription. And I thought it was funny that he asked me about wearing hats because apparently he wears a lot of hats, if that causes hair loss.
No, I mean, it's crazy that in 2014 we still think that wearing a hat and using gel will cause hair loss.
Yeah, but you got to understand, I mean, our parents tell us this shit. Who knows what his mother is telling him when he's asking, when, you hear all these wives' tales, and you just kind of, it becomes it's part of the fabric of our culture. That's just the way that it is. The fact
of the matter is, it's genetic, right? I mean, that's all that it comes down to is your genetic.
It's your genes, right? But it's like every other. It's like every other.
To it, and some people are not.
It's like all other myths that we live by in life, sexual myths, and everything that that we're kind of forced to live with and live by. This is no different. Like hair loss comes from your mother's side. How is that even reasonable? Why would it just come from your mother's side?
I had a meeting with a doctor. This guy's a surgeon. And we had an entire discussion, and he's a very smart guy. I mean, an intelligent guy. And we sat down, and I was schooling him about he's on Propecia, he's on Finasteride, this guy.
Right.
And I was telling him all. He's like, my mother's bald. I'm like, that's not true. That whole thing about being from your mother's side.
Well, that's true, but if his mother's bald, he's got a pretty strong predisposition to hair loss. I mean, it comes from both sides of the family.
It comes from both sides of the family, and that's what I was explaining. I'm like, it doesn't just go based on your mother's side. If your grandfather on your mother's side is bald, that doesn't mean you're going to lose your hair. That doesn't mean that you're going to keep your hair.
Right. Right.
Genetics on both sides, and I was explaining this to him, and he was blown away. He's like, well, what about hats?
Yeah, that's a big one.
This is a doctor. This is a surgeon.
Doesn't make a difference. I know a lot of really stupid doctors, I promise you. A lot of guys, I mean, I don't even know how they get up and tie their shoes in the morning. Yet somehow they got through medical school. So, I mean, just because someone's a physician doesn't mean that they know everything. They have a certain skill set. They were able to get through their sciences and math and do well in school to get through medical school. I know a lot of guys who walk around who are physicians are like Mr. Magoo.
I was with a mutual friend of ours that understands hair loss, and he was there for drinks with this guy. And after the fact, he messaged me. He's like, "Oh my God, it was like you were the doctor."
Right.
He was blown away by the fact that I was telling him about DHT-resistant follicles and how it works, and he was asking me about. Actually, he had read your book, this doctor,
right,
years ago, and he was asking me about saw palmetto and how well it works, and then shedding. I mean, it was crazy to tell him about all this stuff because he had no idea. And this is an educated guy that was believing all the myths on the internet.
Yeah, listen, dude, that's the way that it is. And the truth is, I mean, there's so much that the world believes about, when we see something on the internet, about anything, about any health issues. There was a guy that contacted me. Well, I sent you this email today from a guy that contacted me who asked me if there was a way to have cosmetic surgery to make him look Chinese.
That is the most insane thing I've ever seen.
Okay, now these are the kind of emails that we receive. Okay, and now that we're getting into some other things, we're receiving some really crazy stuff. There was a small study done, and it's just there was no causal effect shown that Viagra and Viagra type drugs like Cialis and the other one, that there might be a link to increased incidence of melanoma. It's a relatively small trial. A relatively small amount of guys who happen to be on this drug seem to have a higher incidence of melanoma, but there's still been no causal effect. People are flipping out. But this is the funny thing. If that had to do, if people who are using Propecia or any other drug got that information, they'd be out there suing people, whatever it is. A lot of these guys who are on Viagra, they don't want to stop even if it's going to cause them cancer. But there's still a little bit of a scare. And I'm contacted by all these guys. And I guess it's, even though I do the hair loss show, guys contact me about all these different issues. And that was a question that came in. Now, at this stage in my life, I'm not taking Viagra. I'm not saying that I'm not going to take it one day if I need to. But so I didn't really read about that. But so I started to do some research on the internet, and all of a sudden I'm seeing all this stuff. And I'm seeing these ambulance chasers, or allegedly, starting to, try to, go after, what's the company that makes Viagra? I don't know. I forgot. But anyway, so, lawsuits and all kinds of stuff. So my point is this. there's a lot of stuff that circulates online, and a lot of people become, alarmed. There's a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of misinformation, and there's just a lot of basic wives' tales that are then now with the online world, everything is just perpetuated and just put out there in so many different ways. So every time you look something up, you Google something, you're going to read some bullshit. So when people look up hair loss, they're reading about this nonsense. They're reading that it comes from your mother's side and that Propecia is going to cause you to have permanent impotence and, this, that, and the other thing. It's the way that it is. You kind of have to.
Most people that I talk to about hair loss will always ask me, the first thing they ask me is, well, what's going to happen to my, my junk?
Of course.
If I go on Propecia. And I always have to explain to people this, and it's a very difficult thing for them to grasp, and I find that to be the most amazing part. I always give them the example of, before you read, whatever someone is suffering from, 1, what is their previous medical condition? 2, what kind of health are they in? Are they overweight? And sadly, what are they married to?
Yes.
What does their spouse look like? That plays a huge part. And you know what? Most of the people that are complaining about these issues don't want to hear that as a reason why they can't get it up anymore.
Look, and a lot of it can be. Absolutely, as we know as guys, if you think you can't get it up, you can't get it up, period. Even if if it crosses your mind just transiently during the act, you'll lose your wood. That's the way.
Are you drinking? Do you have a drinking problem? What other medication are you on?
Right. Some guys, if you have 2 glasses of wine, they can't do it.
And age, that plays a big part. How old are these people that are claiming that the second they went on finasteride, literally, the minute they went on finasteride.
Well, in all fairness, a lot of the guys that are out there who are posting about those experiences are younger guys. They're guys who are in their early to mid 20s, but they're in a panic. Now, I'm not saying that and I want to make this clear to all of my haters out there and all of the people out there that think I'm somehow pushing this drug, which I am not. I have no connection to Merck. I am not making any money from this. From the discussion of this drug. It's just a drug that changed my life for the better, and millions of guys who have had success with this drug without adverse side effects. But, a lot of it, in my view, I do believe that there's a subset of guys who will have these adverse side effects, and some of them may have this Postfinasteride Syndrome, which still there's no, real causal proof at this point. But people are talking about it. But whatever it is, people need to be aware of it.
And before people assume that I'm just picking a side, I do believe that Postfinasteride Syndrome exists. I do think that is a real thing. But what percentage of men using this medication are being affected by that? 1%?
And I have no idea because I'm never going to stop using it. Let me tell you something. Even if, because of everything that I've read, and that's how fucked up the internet is, and I know better because of everything I've read, even if I'm able to take a shot tomorrow and keep all my hair, I'm still going to take the pill because I don't want to get off it and all of a sudden, my junk doesn't work.
What would be amazing?
Yeah.
If this was reversed. If, all these women started, and they do. But think about birth control medication. Birth control pill.
Well, birth control actually, sadly, and a lot of women have no idea, and it's being prescribed like candy, and to very young girls. We know that birth control is one of the biggest causes of female pattern hair loss that there is. It is really, for most people, if you go to the websites, if you speak to people women with hair loss, that is usually the trigger, whether getting on or getting off. But the adverse sexual side effects from the birth control pill are vast. And some of them, and they've been complaining about this for years, and you read about them online, seem to be permanent. Some of them are transient, but we're talking about just like men who have sexual dysfunction. Women have lowered libido, lower ability to have orgasms.
But you don't see people calling for Yasmin to be pulled off the shelves. You don't see.
Well, there are lawsuits for other reasons, but not about the sexual issues. Yasmin has its own problems. Now, listen, that's the way of the world, man. It's the way of the world. Guy can't get up; they're going to lose their mind. I understand it. I don't believe me, I'm not saying that this isn't happening to these guys. I just think that people have to really, look at the real data out there. The data that is out there, a lot of guys think that the data is somehow skewed, that the pharmaceutical companies are lying about the reality of the results. These are the results that they had to give to the FDA. And this drug has been out there for decades with a tremendous safety record compared to most drugs in the physician's desk reference. So if you're weighing any drug, if you're taking anything, whether it's an antidepressant or it's cimetidine for gastrointestinal disorders or Proscar or Propecia, they all have the potential to cause adverse side effects and sexual side effects. It's just the reality of it. And
a lot of things do. A painkiller, a Vicodin, could give you sexual side effects.
Dude, Klonopin, benzodiazepam.
Do you see all these poets screaming about Vicodin to be pulled off the shelf because they couldn't get it up? How about Budweiser? Are we looking at Budweiser as a reason why we can't get it up anymore?
That's actually a very good point.
How about Jameson? Whiskey is a great. There's a whole saying about whiskey. Are we screaming that it should be banned? Listen, for some people it works, for others it doesn't. But don't ruin it for 95% of the other people that it works for.
Well, here's the truth. No one's going to ruin it. The drug will never be banned. I mean, it is, when you look at the reality and you look at the safety profile, it's a very, very safe drug. So no one has to worry about that who's having success with it and using it. It's not going to be taken off the market, no matter what people are screaming about on message forums. But I do think it's important. With that said, I do think it's important that the information is out there. So the guys who are beating their drum, and they're doing a damn good job, of getting the information out there, while I do believe there's some fear-mongering happening, I also think that the information that's being put out there is valuable for people. So at least they have both sides of the coin. They understand what they're getting involved in and what the possibilities are.
Sure, I totally agree with you. I think it's important to get the information out there, but the people that are screaming, again, the people that are screaming that this drug is affecting them in a negative way, what other I would love to know their history other than this medication. What other medications? What is their mental history? What kind of sexual past have they had?
I'm sure a lot of these guys. First of all, if you're taking finasteride, you're hyper concerned about your hair loss. Some people may have OCD. There's a lot of things that come into play. And then if you are kind of fettered with this information before you start taking the drug, the stuff that we read online, and you have OCD or you have these type of compulsions, it's very possible that it's going to exacerbate the situation and cause a stronger psychosomatic effect. For sure. There's no doubt about it. I'm one of those dudes. I'm a nut job. You know that. I have OCD. It's insane. If I would have read this stuff before, and I started taking the drug in like 94 or 93, something like that, this information wasn't out there. There was some information. There were some doctors that were claiming that it would possibly feminize you or, you could possibly have adverse side effects. But there's nothing about permanence. It was always like it was reversible. So for me, it was worth the risk. I took it. I was fine. Thank God. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years.
You're one of the most conservative people when it comes to treatment that I know.
Yes.
I don't know anybody that is more conservative when it comes to, any kind of medical procedure. I've asked you, we've gotten loaded and I've asked you if I should, do certain things. And your answer has always been on the other side. It's never been, do it.
I don't think a penis enlargement is necessary for anybody.
Well, listen, we could all use an extra inch.
Well, listen,
but,
yeah, Andrew, go ahead.
The scenario is, can you imagine, just envision a message forum screaming that Jack Daniels should be taken off the market because you couldn't get it up one night.
Oh, yeah. Well, does it?
Just think
it doesn't make sense because obviously, listen, everyone is hyper focused on the evil pharmaceutical companies. And people don't realize how the world has changed and how many lives have been saved and bettered by these companies that are looked at as these, evil conglomerates that don't care about the health of people who they're giving these drugs to. Listen, the bottom line is, listen, they're capitalists. These businesses are in business to make money, obviously, but for the most part, these drug companies, in my view, have do their best to create the most effective and safest drugs. And, the FDA is there for a reason. Is it a perfect system? Absolutely not. But anytime you change the chemistry of your body, you have a potential for side effects. And that's with what you put in your body, whether it's food or herbs or any type of nutritional supplement and booze. And people, they drink every day. They eat every day. You don't know what, so there's no doubt that, these issues happen. But people have to really kind of look at it, look at the big picture and realize, you know what? Oh, my cat's going nuts. You know what? Before I take this drug, it's great to have all this information, but let's look at the real data. And let's not look at all the stuff that's out there that's being posted by anonymous people, because you don't know where that information's coming from. So anyway, Andrew, listen, man, I'm going to take a couple of phone calls.
All right. Have a good chat. I'll be listening.
All right. I really appreciate the call. It's good talking to you.
See you later.
Say hi to Jess. 888-659-3727. I got like a cat here. It's bothering my dog. My dog's going to get up. I'm afraid he's going to knock over one of the cameras. It's a whole fucking thing. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Spence, it's Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, it should be better now. I got way better service.
Much better. Much better.
Much better, yeah. I kind of missed out on what you guys were talking about.
You didn't really miss much.
No.
No.
I just wanted to make a big point that I wanted to make too is we were talking about developing more more within yourself rather than your exterior, and I think if you're losing your hair, I think something that I've started to do is I've started to take care of my skin. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I think that's a big thing. Is other guys go to the gym. I go to the gym too, but there's a lot of things you can do that even if you lose your hair, you can have other things that when other guys hit their 40s, they're not going to have.
That's right.
If you put sunscreen on every day, and you put what's called a retinoid on it, you're going to preserve your skin much better than everybody your age. And you have the potential to have the skin of when you're in your 40s, to have the skin of somebody in their late 20s. So there's other things that you can focus on.
Listen, I agree. Working out, making money, developing a career, developing great relationships in your life. As difficult as it is socially, when you're feeling uncomfortable in your own skin, to kind of go out there and be social, and after a while it kind of becomes second nature. It becomes habitual, and it doesn't become as difficult. It's not as difficult as when you kind of like. And listen, I'm telling you, like I said, I used alcohol to kind of as a social lubricant, but the truth is, I got out there. I didn't want to hide away and isolate myself. And I used any means possible to go out there and feel, just enjoy life.
I actually have a question for you. When you were in college, were you losing your hair?
No, I didn't start losing my hair until about a year after I dropped out. So I was 21 when I started to notice it.
You were like 21. So I guess I only asked just because, did you know while you were in school, did you notice a difference between how women reacted to you then versus when you were in your late 20s?
No, in school, I'll be honest with you. In school, I had no issues with that. I didn't even think about it. I had other issues, but I was having fun, and I had plenty of girlfriends, and it was a relatively carefree time as far as my appearance was concerned. But,
Right.
once I got back to New York, within about 6 or 7 months after, coming back, I noticed the first signs of hair loss, and I went into a
Right.
tailspin. Now, I didn't notice people looking at me differently, or I didn't really feel like I was getting, what's the word, that I was becoming less attractive until about a year into it. And then I started to notice that my hairline was receding a little bit. I just wasn't able to style it the same. And I noticed people maybe reacting a little differently to me, but I really think at the time it was probably because of the way I was reacting to the situation myself.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah.
Like, do you, I think I know this, I know bald men, right? Everybody does.
Sure.
And I have a handful, they're not amazing looking guys. They're good looking. They're not ugly people.
Right.
They're not super attractive guys. I know this one guy. It's actually my brother-in-law's father. So my sister married this guy, and he's got this dad who's, completely bald. And actually his son is my sister's husband is going bald. And these two guys carry themselves in such a way that they're more attractive.
Yeah.
What they lose in hair, what they've lost in hair, it's like you look at this person's personality, they're a joy to be around. They're smart guys. They're, they work out. Both of them work out. This guy's almost 70, still works out. But I mean...
But that's an interesting point that you just made. The fact that you said they're a joy to be around, that's of tremendous value. Not only, obviously, as a guy, it's great to have friends who are a joy to be around, but women really are attracted to that in ways that guys, especially young guys, they can't understand. Yes, it's easier for you, for sure, if you're a really good-looking guy, even if you're a half a moron and you're quiet, you're going to get looks, when you're out, and, you're going to be able to nail women. But in the end, they want to be with the guy who's a joy to be with, the guy who's fun and engaging.
Exactly. And if you're consumed with your hair loss to the point where you're bringing other people down, then you're the guy that nobody wants to be around anymore. And it's not because you're losing your hair. That's not why people aren't attracted to you. It's because of the way you're acting.
Well, I'm telling you, I experienced that. I was still, I was good looking enough, where I would go to the bars, I'd have a couple of drinks in me, I'd meet, good looking women, and then, hang out with them for a couple of weeks. But my depression would and I sensed it, turn them off. And before they can make the move to break up with me, I would be like, you know what, it's not working out. It's because
you ditched them before they could ditch you.
Yeah, but I sensed it. I sensed them kind of pulling back. One person actually sat me down and was like, what's wrong? You always seem so sad. When we're at dinner, whatever it is, you just don't seem like the way you were when I met you. And when I met this person, I was loaded. And we're having fun at the bar, so I kind of forgot all that stuff. And she was just attracted to me because she felt I was an attractive person. And yes, I was fun to be with and stuff like that. But when I would get into my thoughts, I became depressed, and it showed.
Yep.
It showed. It was very difficult to hide. It took me years to really become like you said, a joy to be with, a joyful person, someone who really appreciated what they had and focused on what they had instead of what they didn't have.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done, dude. It's easier said than done.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you can make people feel good, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be funny, But if you can just make people feel good about themselves, I think especially women, because, women are, I think by nature, even more insecure. If something happens to a woman physically.
Oh my God.
Or if she has one, it's amplified.
Dude,
right?
the hotter the woman, in my experience, the more insecure they are.
Right. And so if you can make that girl feel good about herself and feel comfortable about herself, then she's gonna want to be around you.
It's funny. How old are you now? You're going to be 26 on Saturday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, happy birthday again. But you have a tremendous amount of insight for a young guy. And that's invaluable. It really is. And that's going to make you, and you probably noticed this, but it's hard for you because you're still dealing with the exterior,
Yeah.
that's going to make you really attractive to women. There's no doubt. And you know it.
Yeah, I
That's
know
the case because women, they want you to listen to that. No matter what you see on television, all the bullshit, even when you hear girls talking in a bar about some hot guy, the truth is when they're home alone, when they're in their own, their own thoughts, when they're with that person that they want to be with, they want to be with the person that makes them feel better about themselves, that makes them feel, just like they're enjoying life. That's
Yeah.
what a relationship is all about. It's not about being with the best looking person. And I think women actually get that more than guys.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally. It's not even close. It's not even close. Guys are, way more. I mean, that's just the way it is biologically. That's how it is.
Brian Monroe is he's in the chat room. I know he's a big, Tom Likas fan and a little bit of a groupie. So you should actually. You're not a Tom Likas fan, Brian? Well, you should call in, dude. You have a phone, 888-659-3727. I agree with some of what that women do lie, and there is a group of women, and I'm not going to say it's a subset, but there are women out there who, especially younger women, who they are focused on a guy's looks and stuff like that. But there's plenty of women who aren't. Plenty of women who aren't, and frankly, they prefer to be with a guy like you. I don't know what you look like. I think you said you were a good-looking guy.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen the pictures yet. I forgot about that.
Well, I don't think you sent them.
I did. I think I did. Maybe they didn't go through. I don't know. Or maybe they deleted them. I don't know.
Okay.
But I sent them to the email. Anyways, the last point I wanted to make, though, is, and I don't mean to call out, there's an actor, right? And he's dating this, I don't know if I should say his name. I don't mean to call people out, and that's not.
It's all right. Point. I mean, listen, everyone knows if he's bald, and they know.
Yeah, he's not bald, but he's a young guy. He's like 24. His name's Nicholas Hoult. He's in the X-Men movies, and he was in a movie called Warm Bodies.
Right.
Anyways, he dated Jennifer Lawrence.
Right.
Who's like, she was rated FHM's like hottest woman.
Yeah, she's incredible.
And, she's incredibly hot. And this guy, I'm pretty sure, is losing his hair. Now, I can't be sure, but his hairline looks pretty similar to mine.
Right. As a Norwood, you know.
I mean, he's got a V-shaped hairline. What else could it be? It's not nobody has a hairline like that as a kid.
Right.
So it's changed some, right? I can guarantee you, and this guy is not as big of an actor as she is, so his career isn't even as high. So what is it about this guy that she is attracted to? He's not unbelievably good looking. He's all right looking.
Yeah.
But what is it about this guy that really,
but
whatever.
Look at that. I mean, that's the best looking women in Hollywood are usually going out with, as far as on the attractiveness scale, going out with guys who are not on the same level of attractiveness as they are.
The other guy too is there's a pitcher on the Tigers. What's his name? Justin Verlander. He's losing his hair, quite obviously. I saw they played the Red Sox in the World Series last year, so
right.
I noticed it. And he's getting Kate Upton.
Yeah, but he's a professional baseball player.
Yeah, but she's the most. She could have any guy she wants.
Right. Right.
So what is it about him? Of all the guys out there, she could have literally any guy.
Yeah.
She could have a guy with a full head of hair who plays baseball.
That's true.
What is it about this guy?
That's true.
What is it about this one guy?
That's true. But listen, you have a great outlook. You really do. I know you still struggle. And we all do, but you have a great outlook for a young guy. And I wish that there were more young guys out there who are on the forum, who are listening to this broadcast, who are watching us, who could really, not just listen to what you're saying, but really get it and understand that this is the reality. The guys who are on the forum that are like posting pictures of male models and that they have to be perfectly aesthetic, otherwise their lives are over, and all that insanity. That's not reality, man. The truth is, I know a lot of my contemporaries happen to be with younger women, especially, here in, Los Angeles and Calabasas. And some of them aren't that great looking, let's face it. But they're successful, and they're cool, and they end up landing really hot women. It's not because these women are gold diggers. You got to get that out of your mind, guys. It's because they find these guys attractive and sexy because they were able to succeed in life, and because they were interesting people.
Right, and they make the other person happy.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
If she's with some guy who's an asshole, she's going to hate it.
That's right.
Yeah? It might take her a while to figure that out, right? It might. Guys out there who are 21 or 22, it's if some girl that age reacts to you that way, fuck her. You don't want to be with her anyways. And the other thing is, you want to be with somebody who either doesn't care, it's not a big deal to them, or understands that that your looks are temporary and that there has to be something else there in order for it to work. So if somebody doesn't give you a chance and doesn't give you an opportunity to show what else you have besides your hairline, you don't want to be with that person. You don't want to be with that person.
Tim, that's great advice, man. It really is. And, it's easier said than done to kind of like embrace that, especially for the younger guys.
I'm still struggling with it,
Right. But it's no truer words were ever spoken. It is the truth. And all you have to do is find a way to feel comfortable in your own skin, go out there, and I'm telling you, you can be, I know guys who are like 5'5". I know guys who are 5'5" with like significantly receding hairlines who are with not women who you think they would be with. They're with like 7s and 8s and, really attractive girls. Yeah. There's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah, and I think the one last thing I'll say is, like, if any of you guys, who are losing your hair and you approach a woman and she, immediately turns you off, well, that doesn't mean that you weren't right for her, man. It means that she wasn't right for you.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's the truth, and it sounds cliche, but it's true, because if you ended up with that person, she'd suck anyways. So
that's well said, man. Listen, I appreciate it. Always appreciate the call. And we're going to take a couple more phone calls, but hang in there, and happy birthday.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, you take care. All right, bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Tim from Boston's always a great caller. A very insightful kid, I got to tell you. You guys, you young guys out there, even you older guys, listen to what this guy has to say. I mean, he makes a lot of sense. He's incredibly eloquent and articulate, and just seems to be really well-versed in life for a 26-year-old guy. It amazes me. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer, this is Brian from Chicago.
Brian from Chicago. How are you, man?
Good, man. Hey, I haven't called in like 2 years, so it's been a while. Good to tune back in.
Well, welcome, man. What's going on?
Thanks. Not too much. I'm actually in a much better position than I was 12 months ago, at least hair-wise, and also emotionally around it, because I started taking finasteride.
You did.
Ago, so.
All right. So, you know what? Remind me of your story. You tell me how old you are and what your hair loss situation is.
Yeah. So I'm 27, and honestly, I was actually called out for hair loss at like the age of 18 in a pool.
Wow.
Yeah. So my hair, started the recession process when I was 18, and just kind of slowly continued year after year, all the way up until, last year when I started finasteride. And definitely, I wanted to call, number one, to kind of give my testimony, and number two, I've also got a question about it when I'm done.
Sure.
But, so my testimony is, obviously when I was 18 and I noticed I was losing my hair, I went straight to the forums, straight to the internet, and the first thing, just like your caller said earlier, is, as a young guy, you really any guy, if you're thinking about getting on this medication, you see the side effects of, your dick going limp.
Right.
And that scares the shit out of you.
Sure.
So not only had that working against me, but I was also pretty much, I was raised, my parents were both pretty big into like the natural supplement scene. And they were like, pharmaceuticals are bad. Don't take them unless you absolutely need to, et cetera, et cetera. So I had that kind of mindset instilled in me. And I do believe that natural treatments have a time and a place, and I've seen them be effective for different conditions. So
I don't want to cut you off. I believe that as well, but I also think it's important that people understand that these natural supplements, whether they're herbal supplements or just some sort of nutritional supplementation, this is basically coming from nature's pharmacy, and none of this stuff is regulated. So you
Very
really don't know what you're putting into your body. And these can be powerful, potent drugs in a sense. So
Absolutely.
while they're natural, it doesn't necessarily mean they're better for you.
Right. No, I agree 100%. There's definitely the regulation issue. I mean, you could go on the internet right now and look for a supplement company for some specific thing. There might be, 20 different companies that offer this, and some dude might be doing it out of his basement. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So, yeah, I think they have a time and a place from a reputable company and stuff that's backed by research, significant research. I think they have a time and a place. But so I guess the long story short is, I was shit scared of finasteride. I thought for sure that if I went on it, I was going to suffer from these side effects because I never take any prescription meds. I was totally on board with the natural thing. And I got to tell you, I basically, let's see, so I was 25 and I was approaching, like a solid, probably a really solid Norwood 3. And to me, that was pretty much, it was to the point where I was like, okay, this is the point of no return. If I could progress any further in my hair loss process, I'm going to have to buzz it down just to stay sane.
Yeah, you have at that point you have no choice. Either you buzz it down, you get yourself a partial hair system, or you get a hair transplant.
Right, exactly. Obviously, based on your recommendations, and I think based on good hair transplant doctors' recommendations, nobody's going to recommend you get a hair transplant at 25.
Yeah, at 25, or especially if you're progressing to your Norwood 3 at 25. I mean, that's significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I went into taking finasteride with all the wrong mindsets, and I was shit scared the day I went to go get my prescription. But I kind of, cooled myself out, leveled out my nerves and all that stuff. And I was like, hey, fuck it, I'm going to give this a try. We're going to see what happens. I should also note that I've got like literally 4 or 5 good friends who take finasteride, and they were all on it before I was, but I was still so shit scared to take it that I just couldn't do it until, 12 months ago. Anyways, here I am 12 months ago, no side effects at all that I'm aware of. My hair is significantly better now than it was 12 months ago. I was having a ton of, anxiety around the process like a lot of young guys do. And a great deal of that has been diminished because, like your caller said earlier, I feel like I have some control over this now. So I kind of want to give that positive testimonial because I know there are a lot of young guys out there that are super scared to take it. They think for sure something bad is going to happen to them. Their disc's going to go limp, whatever. I got to say that, or I got to kind of mimic and kind of echo what you say, that they're probably doing themselves a great disservice by reading everything that's on the internet in terms of side effects.
Well, it's important that comes from a guy, especially a guy. You say you're how old are you now? 26, 27?
Yeah.
A young guy like yourself, because I was a young guy just like you, and I started to take it around the same age that you are now, before there was really any real data on the drug. So I really took a risk. But there's no doubt that when I talk about my experience and the experiences of my friends who are now in their late 40s, who started to take this drug a decade ago, who still have their hair because of this drug, and the opportunity that this drug gives us to, at the very least, come to terms with the reality of, okay, I'm dealing with this now. At least I could slow it down and kind of, maybe get used to the idea that one day I might be bald, but it doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be when I'm in my 20s and in the prime of my life and when I'm dealing with all the difficulties of just being that age. These guys, in my view, and you said it, are doing themselves a great disservice. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more, and I was one of those guys. I mean, I did myself a great disservice by not hopping on this when I was younger. My only regret around it right now is not taking it 3 years earlier,
You know what? And you listen, you can't think about that because honestly, and I say this all the time, if I were at this stage in my life, if the internet was out there and all this information was out there when I was considering taking the drug, there's a good chance I never would have taken it. And the sad thing is, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now. I would not have this career. We would not have this show. We would not have been able to help the millions of people who have either read my books or have tuned into this broadcast over the last 17 years, if that were the case. Right. And that would be unfortunate, but I get it. I mean, it's scary. When you read that stuff, it's scary, but I'm really happy for you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Kind of, your introduction kind of worked well with the testimonial too, because it was really like, I noticed that the last several years of my life, especially when hair loss was really kind of starting to accelerate a little bit, or at least getting worse, kind of in its worst state. I realized that I worried about it so much, and being a young guy, a lot of us have our lives turned upside down about it.
Yes.
I realized that I had totally lost several years of true happiness in my life by not taking this, or at least being more proactive about it. I was just like you, like in college, I was still going out and getting plenty of girls and everything, but shit, it was just a drunken, self-medicating, like trying to get through it kind of haze. You know what I mean?
Oh, I still have weeks like that. I talk about it freely, but
yeah,
there's so many people that relate to exactly what we have both been through. Right. But then there are the guys who are on the spectrum of, they can never come to terms with, what's going on. Like you were able to get through it. You had, like you said, you had to get drunk and go out, but you were still able to, hang out with girls and live your life. You finally made a decision, something, to be proactive, and just making that decision benefits your psyche. Just knowing that you're doing something positive to help yourself instead of just sitting on these fucking message forums and, just pining over it all day and, trying all this gray market bullshit. I mean, it's liberating, and you're a great example of that, man.
Yeah. I think if you're, and, I was definitely in this state for at least, 18 months to 2 years, to where I was trolling the forums. I was looking for that next bit of news to come out that, hey, here's this new natural pill, natural solution you can rub on your head that's gonna cure you. And it totally just, for some reason, that whole format and that setup plays into like your human nature, where you just kind of go into this rabbit hole. You're constantly just looking for different treatments, because there's a lot of different, research out there. A lot of it's conflicting, so people get confused. And so they're trying to sort out all this information when really the truth and the best treatments have really, they've been around and they're FDA approved. That's really where you got to look. So I think definitely if you're one of those guys who is trolling the forums, spending countless hours looking through the forums, looking for that next cure, you have not tried finasteride because you're too scared of the side effects. I think you absolutely, if you're a young guy and you're basically just pissing your life away, you got to give it a try.
Well,
go into it with a positive mindset and just try it.
And it's so important, and I'm hoping that when we put this archive up, that guys who listen to the program through the forum really get it. They really need to get it, because listen, there's no doubt we have the most trafficked quasi-private forum, in hair loss in the world. And I say quasi-private because, we've needed to make it that way because of all the nonsense and all the spamming and all the craziness that was going on. And when it was completely public like the other forums, the traffic was insane. Now, obviously, it's, it behooves me to have a well-trafficked site. It behooves me to have you guys sit there all fucking day and create traffic for me. But I'd rather you just maybe check the forum out once a month and live your life. If you're still interested in what's going down in hair loss, you don't need to be there every day. Nothing's going to change. But what happens is, it becomes, instead of becoming a support group, which I wish they were, had more of a support aspect to it. In some cases it does, but it's more of a place where people go to commiserate and then obsess.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's a very, very unhealthy environment. Actually, it's so unhealthy. Even though I didn't want to be in the forum world for a long time. I was kind of asked to do it by some of the more ethical physicians in the industry a few years ago. But I am actually thinking about, is Bald Truth Talk contributing to this, diseased mentality? Mm-hmm. And it really bugs me sometimes. Like, I think we're making it a safer place than other forums, but it's still, I think they're really not great places to be. And when I hear a young guy like you saying that you were in that rabbit hole and you were able to crawl out of it, and you realized you were able to intellectualize what was going on and what you were dealing with, that's rare.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was lucky enough. I at least have the mental stability. I definitely have OCD and all that stuff. I obsess over my hair, and and that whole issue. But I consider myself stable-minded enough to where I was able to finally say, hey, I'm going to try finasteride. If that doesn't work, I'd shaved my head before, so, multiple times, by the way. And just doing that, that's one thing I can recommend for sure to anybody. If you're thinking about shaving your head, you have to at least give that a try once to see how you look, see how people receive you, and see how you can kind of operate with that kind of look, because that's a huge fallback plan. If nothing else, you can always buzz your head. And if you know that you can, kind of live on with that look, that's kind of a huge fallback. But
that's great.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so I think those two things are two things that young guys for sure definitely got to try. I don't want to.
Go ahead. I know you had a question also that you wanted to ask.
Yeah. So my question is, after being on it for 12 months, I've had what I would call good results for me, meaning I can go out and style my hair a lot better. It takes me like 5 minutes to do my hair, where it used to take me like literally 25 minutes some days to get it just how I wanted it. What I'm concerned about now is I take generic finasteride, and I have listened to some shows where you've said that there may be some diminished effectiveness with generic finasteride versus the name brand stuff, either ProScar or actual Propecia by Merck.
Right.
The cost difference is obviously pretty significant. But I'm kind of thinking about longevity and consistency here, and kind of want to get your opinion on generic versus, United States pharmacy, going to your local pharmacy, getting generic versus name brand Propecia.
Well, here's my opinion. My opinion is, if you began taking the name brand drug, don't fuck with it. But if you've had success with a generic, I would try to stick with that generic, whether it's Teva or whatever generic you're on. Stick with that generic because you've had success. So it's obviously a good generic. It's working for you. I'm not saying that all generics have, like you said, diminished results, have less of an effect or less effective. But there does seem to be some sort of a theme when guys decide that, who've been on brand name Propecia or ProScar for several years, and then they're like, you know what, I can save some money and I can get the generic. They switch. Those are the guys that seem to be losing ground. But not every one of those guys. I think it depends on the generic that they're taking. But since you've had success, you don't have to worry about it. Just stick to the generic that you're using.
Yeah. I just kind of worry. I've had, several different looking pills, so I know they're different manufacturers. So I just kind of worry about the consistency. I mean, the fact that someone can be on a name brand and go off of it, or name brand and go off of it and have some diminished results, kind of makes me like, well,
how many different types of pills, and were you getting them? Well, first question, how many different types of pills do you think you were getting? Two brands or three different brands?
I think I was getting three.
Okay.
Throughout the course of a year, because I buy them in 3 month supplies, so I've had 4 refills. I think I've had 3 different brands, at least 2, maybe 3 different brands.
And are you getting them from the same? Are you getting them from the same pharmacy?
Yeah, and I asked them about it. It's a local grocery store pharmacy, big chain. And she said, it's, since this stuff is generic, we just kind of we give you whatever we have in supply.
Well, what you can do is you could ask them the brands, just know the brands that you're using, and stick to those. See if you can stick to those 3 brands. So if you are, because you've had success with all of them. So if you're the next time you fill your prescription, say, listen, these are the brands that I've used. I like to stick to at least one of them. So if you don't have this brand in stock, can I get this other brand? They'll usually order it for you, or they'll find the drugstore where you can get it. But so far you're doing well. So if you have that concern, just find out what the brands are and stick to those brands.
Okay. But you don't think, have you ever heard a story of the reverse case where someone goes from a generic to name brand and has increased results?
I have. I've known several people that have contacted me over the years who have had no results with generic, and then they went on name brand and had results. But you're not in that category. You're at the point now where you have more hair. You're happy with the results, so you are doing well. So your body's reacting well to whatever the generic is, even if there's some slight, molecular differential, compared to the brand name. You're reacting well to those 3 generics. So just consider yourself lucky. And if you're concerned about making a change at any point, which you should be, I don't think if you've done well on these 3 drugs, there's no reason why the drugstore is not going to carry those brands, at least one of those brands, at all times. So just find out what they are, and if you see something different at one time you're filling your prescription, ask them about it. But the thing is, always have some pills in reserve. So if you do fill your prescription and you find out, wait a second, this is not a brand that I'm used to taking, at least you're not going to be, shit out of luck.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to have some.
Definitely. No, I think that's good advice.
All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you so much for, giving the young guys out there some really strong advice. And I'm really glad you've had success, and keep calling.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Hope it helps somebody. Good show.
All right. You got it, man. Take care.
Thanks, man. See you.
All right. 888-659-3727. I'm going to take one more call, but then I have to take a break because I got to take a piss. So let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from? Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Joe Tillman calling from Bald Truth Studios North.
Joe, what's happening, man? This other guy was on the line for like 25 minutes, and he hung up.
I hate being the guy that's keeping you from taking a whiz.
No, I'm good. Listen, if it was really killing me, I would take a break.
And that's what I tell people.
Yeah.
I'll take a break. But anyway, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. What's going on with you? What's new? Long time no speak.
Long time no speak. What's new? Well, been doing a little traveling.
Yeah, well, that I know.
Yeah, a little traveling. Life is pretty good right now. I spent 3 weeks in Ottawa at Rahal Clinic, and getting to know things there, and it was a fun trip. It was a educational trip for sure, and just kind of settling into the change in my life.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's significant change. You've been working for the same clinic for what, 11 years?
Yeah, 11 years exactly.
Yeah. So
11 years as of next month.
Yeah. So I mean, while you are making a switch to another great clinic, there's got to be some culture shock involved. There's got to be, every place is run differently. But you're definitely working for a great surgeon.
Yeah, and that's going out to the clinic and spending. I was there for 3 weeks, and spending that amount of time at the clinic, I was able to get a good feel for how things work there. I mean, I had a good idea, up front, but to actually see things in action, Dr. Rahal was really nice. I mean, he wanted me to absorb as much as possible about the operations at the clinic, and so I sat in on several surgeries. I not just strip but FUE, and I got to see how they did things there. And it's when it's a well-run machine, it's a well-run machine, and it was a joy. And this is the kind of stuff I really like, is to be able to see the nuts and bolts of an operation like this, and to surgeries, procedures are always fascinating to me, and to be able to be in a position where I can learn something it's exciting.
Well, I mean, it's a big shift, because you went from a 100% FUT clinic to a clinic now that does a large percentage, and you can tell me what percentage, but I think it's at least half of their work now is FUE.
It's significant, absolutely, and the operation is set up to accommodate that, because they've been working to increase the percentage of their FUE clientele, and they made a lot of adjustments foreseeing the FUE side of things growing, and they've taken their time, which is another thing that I like about it. They're not one of these places that just suddenly announce that they're doing it, and they're trying to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. They really took their time, and what a lot of people don't realize is that the clinic has been doing the FUE for several years. It's only now that they're really, they've really built up the portfolio to where they can start sharing that. And that's what I'm doing online is I have my every Friday update for Rahal FUE, and it's been fun. It's an eye opener.
Now, in general, I don't mean to cut you off. In general, how do you think people in the online world, because that's your world, You know, that's where you made your bones. That's where you cut your teeth, so to speak. How are the people in general reacting? You know, I don't read all of the forums. You know, the only forum that I go to is our forum, and it's usually before a program. And I've only done like 2 live shows in the last month, so I've only been there like twice. It seems like everything is kind of okay so far on our forum. What's happening on in the other resources?
Oh, there's, look, when I made the announcement for this, or when I was preparing to make this move, and make my announcement online, I knew, as in any situation, there's always going to be a few people that are looking for an opportunity to sling some mud, and just like in any situation, there are those for this situation. And but it's fine. It doesn't really bother me. I expected it.
But you know what I find so fascinating, and we've talked about this, about the dumbing down of the internet, and I know this is where you cut your teeth, and I talk about that all the time, but just how serious people take these anonymous posters on the forum. You know, no one knows who the fuck they are. No one knows who they're working for. No one knows if they're actually working for the forum or if they're working for other doctors or other clinics or... And the discussions that these guys have, and the fact that some people out there who read the forums take this information as the gospel, it's so beyond, any, when you really think about it, when you really try to intellectualize it, how can people actually take this stuff seriously and really base so many important life decisions on anonymous stuff? And anonymous postings, anonymous people making postings on an internet forum. It's wild.
Amazing. And, like you said, we've had these discussions before, publicly and privately. And, like in regards to what I announced with my decision to make a move in the industry, the amount of effort that has gone in to find any sort of thing that's wrong with me trying to make some sort of, life-altering decision for myself and my family. Some of the things that have been said, it's like, how do people come up with this? And I don't understand the logic that's behind some of what people are saying. But, like I said earlier, most people are very supportive. I've had a lot of positive comments, and, not just publicly, but also privately. I've had some clinics call me. I've had some doctors, like some very well-known doctors, text message me and say, good for you, and, so on and so forth. But when it comes to these anonymous people, a lot of the people that, well, there's only been a few, but, that have negative things to say about this, they're also the ones that are online every single day preaching the gospel about things that I don't understand why there's such issues to begin with. And so they find every little thing that they can about something, and they try to blow it up into something that it's not. And, you got individuals that are, these online experts, so to speak, because they're sitting behind a computer and they're looking at all these pictures, which 90% of all the pictures are inaccurate to begin with.
Yeah, and more than half of what you see is bullshit anyway. These guys don't understand that.
No, and I've made a very strong effort of late to really bring to light this issue that you and I have talked about for years about the flash photography and how it's not just making things like a hairline look more dense or whatever. It's completely misrepresenting what one would see in reality. So for someone to say that, these hairlines by this doctor are absolutely stunning or fantastic, and they're sitting halfway around the world making these judgments about who the best doctor is because of these hairline shots, is some of the most unreliable information you could even begin to find, because what they're referencing as a baseline for these decisions is not realistic. It's like taking. Well,
you know what? You know what? I don't mean to cut you off, but you know what? What's also fascinating to me is when you go to certain forums and there's like cheerleaders for certain doctors, and people are like commenting on images and cases that doctors post. And, being on the back end of the forum, you see who these people are in general.
Yeah.
And in general, what I have found is there are a few guys on our forum that, do like to comment on, and very few do like to comment on the images or the cases of doctors and some videos. Very rare. That's a rare reality. What we found at the beginning, especially the first 2 years of running that forum, is almost every cheerleader was from a clinic or from the clinic that made those posts. And I'm an open book. That's just the way that it is. And there are forums out there that create these cheerleaders just to make it look like the forum is busy and to make it look to clinics who are paying them that people are really interested in their work. When people are doing their research online, they're just doing their research. They're out there looking at the pictures. They're not making commentary. Right. So it's a very odd world, man. And I'm getting to the point, and I really am. I've spoken publicly about this, that, while Bald Truth Talk is a necessary place because we really try to keep it as one of the safest forum, in my view, out there, sometimes I think, we're adding to the culture of bullshit because no matter what we try to do, you just never know 100% who's posting on the forums and where this information is coming from. And it kind of creates this really dark place. Most of these forums are really dark places with a lot of unhappy people. And the guys that spend most of the time on the forums are just really unhappy people. Now, that's not the way it was years ago. I mean, you were a guy that really, you shared a lot of information, about your life and about your experience, and you did it in a very positive way. And there were a lot of the guys out there who were like, they shared things in a positive way back in the day. That's changed.
It was a different world for sure. I mean, my motivation for starting my documentation, the first of its kind, was very simple. I was living on the West Coast, and my family was back east, and I wanted to show them what my experience was with this, these new procedures I was having, to show them that I was okay. Because I told them on the phone, I was like, "Yeah, I'm having another hair surgery," and they're like, "Are you out of your mind?"
Yeah, I could see that.
You've been through it twice. Have you? What the hell happened when you moved out to Seattle? That's crazy talk. I said, no. I feel good about it this time. Let's give it, third time's a charm. And so I started just like a free Yahoo website, right? You sign up for email address and you get 10 megs of web space,
right? Which
back then was enough to do something with.
Sure.
And so I put that together, showing my surgery, showing my grafts being dissected, showing what my head looked like during surgery and 2 days after and all this. And I was sending the links to these pictures back to my family, just to show them I was okay, right? And this is the early days when I first started. And then some of the other guys in the forums were asking, well, how did it go, your procedure? And so I started posting a link to the blog that I put up when blog was a brand new word.
Right.
It kind of seems like so long ago. But and it just grew from that, right? And I made a conscious decision, and it wasn't to counterbalance all the negatives that were out there, because there were no other blogs out there. I was the first one. And I just wanted to be able to show what it was like to go through a positive hair restoration experience based on what I had been through, because I had been through, a really bad situation twice, and going through a good procedure, a positive experience was uplifting.
Well, it was brilliant because it was brilliant because it changed the game. It made this new way of educating patients something that was, it became fastly palatable. We kind of understood it. It was like, holy shit, this guy is actually putting out his life about cosmetic surgery and how it's affected his life, and just image after image of the of the evolution of the result. It was just never done before, and it seems like such a simple concept, and it is actually a simple concept, but it changed the game completely.
And now there's hundreds and hundreds, or even thousands of blogs or testimonials that have been put up in a format that's similar to some extent. And it's nice knowing that I was the first one. It feels good to know that I had some sort of positive influence on the industry. And it's not to say it wouldn't have happened anyway. I mean, I'm sure it would have. I'm positive it would have. But it's nice to say I was the first because, I do like to make positive contributions to something that is a major impact on someone's life, and this just happened to turn out to be the one.
But the problem now is things have really evolved, and it was becoming a negative space even 8-10 years ago. But in general, and people don't get it, they don't see it because they're not working in the field. They don't see what happens behind the scenes on the forums and on these blogs, and it's such a negative space, and there's so much. I think that today's consumer is at such a disadvantage compared to just when you started doing this, because there's so much confusion out there now.
I agree, and the difference between now and 10 years ago, and I can legitimately say 10 years ago, because around 2004, 2005, that was I feel was the peak of what I refer to as the forum wars, right? Where, and I don't mean wars between forums. I mean the patients online just for some reason, I don't know why this was, but there's a lot of passion involved with this subject, and so you had a lot more variation with the membership and the doctors that they were talking about, and people were genuinely passionate about what they felt was the best procedure or the best doctor or the best clinic, and they would present their reasons for it. But now, and the thing about that is it was a lot more of a positive environment overall.
Well, it wasn't as nasty. It was a real debate.
Yeah, it was a real debate, and you had, I mean, there were some knockdown, drag-out fights. I remember I got in some discussions that, I look back now and I just kind of laugh at how much typing I did and how much time I spent on these. But it made a difference at the time. But the thing is, now you don't have that kind of in-depth, logical reasoning behind the postings that a lot of these guys are putting up, because it's more like a drive-by shooting.
That's actually well said.
Who can get the best one-upmanship on the next guy by saying something nasty? And it's just it is a much more negative environment overall than it was even 5 years ago. And unfortunately, I think that it has driven the quality of education down because there is so much more uncertainty with what people are saying and who it is that's saying it, to be honest.
Well, I agree. And I actually think that, the good news is I think that because people are still really, trying to find the truth. They're really trying to get as much in-depth information as possible, plus support. The show's becoming more popular than ever before. I mean, I've been doing this for 17 years, and we looked at numbers. I'm like, Jesus. I mean, it's actually hard to believe that we're still not only able to exist, but thrive in the way that we are. And I think that's in part due to the way that the forums, in my view, are really starting to fall apart. They really are. They really are. I have one. We had to pull back the reins, try to take control because things were getting so ugly. And I'm seeing that happen on most of the forums. But listen, I have a lot of calls. I'm going to take a break. Joe, if you want to stay on hold, I'd be more than happy to keep you around, and we can take some calls together if you'd like.
I will stick around in case anyone's got a question. All
right. So you hold on. Let me make sure that I can keep you potted up. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. Phone number 888-659-3727. I'll be like 3 minutes. Just got to take a piss and get something to drink. We'll be right back after this quick break. Stay with us.
The man who's helping to make hair loss history.
They wish to cure us, but I say we are the cure.
It's Spencer David Kobren.
All right, guys, I am back. 888-659-3727. Thank you so much for hanging out and holding on, for all you guys who have been holding on during the broadcast. I want to thank Joe Tillman for calling in. It's always a nice surprise, and he is pot it up on the program with me. I'm going to take a couple more phone calls, and if you have any direct questions for Joe Tillman, now is the time. But if you want to speak about anything else, feel free. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Spencer, this is TJ. How are you?
Oh, my God, TJ.
How are things, man?
I can't complain, man. Great to hear your voice. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. And it's cool that Joe's on, too. I like listening to Joe and talking with Joe. And I've emailed Joe a couple times, even outside of the show, and he's just a cool guy.
Oh, awesome. So what's happening with your life, man? Listen, obviously you're busy. I know that you met somebody. Are you guys still together?
We're still together, yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
but I listen to your show, man. I basically sit in Los Angeles traffic on Tuesday nights, and I always turn my phone on and listen to you. And I was doing that tonight, and I heard just a little while ago you talking with a caller. I forgot his name, but you were comparing and contrasting generic finasteride versus brand name Propecia.
Right.
And I thought I'd call in. I just wanted to share, my experience with that. And see if you had any thoughts. And it's just a data point that might be useful for anyone interested. But
absolutely.
About 6 months ago, about 6 months ago, when I went to refill my Propecia prescription, the pharmacy mentioned that they had some generics available. So I inquired what the price difference was, and at the time, it was only about $15 or $20. I mean, it was insignificant.
Right.
So it was something like $270 versus $250, something like that, for a 3-month supply. So I just opted for the brand name because that's what I've been using all along. Well, then 3 months ago, when I had to refill my prescription again, I called my doctor's office. It's actually Dr. McAndrews, and asked if they would call the pharmacy to order a prescription for me. And the person who answered the phone there mentioned that they are now selling the generics through their office.
Right.
And the price difference was giant. I mean, it's a factor of 5.
Substantial,
right?
So
Yeah, like anyone, I just opted to give it. It's funny because a while back when I first had the option to switch to generic, I remember I emailed Joe Tillman, and he just asked for his experience on it. And based on a brief interaction with him, I opted to stick with the brand name. But anyway, when I found out the price differential available through Dr. McAndrew's office, I mean, it was just so compelling. I just took a leap and went for it. So I've been on that for just over 3 months now. Been paying attention to any side effects. I've been paying attention to my hair, and so far so good. So I think I'm one of those for which the transition is basically seamless.
Well, and just to be clear, there are a lot of guys like you where the transition is seamless. But Joe will tell you. Actually, I think we lost Joe. Well, let's see. Maybe he's back on line 3. But Joe will tell you. Hold on for 1 second. Let me see if I can pop him up too. He'll definitely tell you that, just like I have, there are guys who have made that transition who are like, oh, shit, why did I do that? Let me see if this is Joe. Joe, is that you?
It is me. It is I.
Yeah. So, I mean, TJ is obviously one of the lucky guys, and there are plenty of guys like TJ who, it happens to be a good generic, and they're doing just fine by making that transition and saving that money.
First off, TJ, awesome to hear your voice, buddy. How you been?
Hey, great, Joe. It's good to hear your voice too, man.
Yeah, awesome. It's a surprise to hear.
Are you guys able to hear each other well?
I can hear Joe great.
Okay, good.
Yep, absolutely. No, I remember that conversation, TJ, and like I told probably 100 guys, it's always best to stick with the name brand, but in my opinion, but. Like Spencer said, I mean, most guys have no problem with the finasteride. And I want to state that absolutely that for the majority of guys out there, generic finasteride is just fine. But there are cases that I've seen personally where it's not the same, and depending on where you get it. And I've had guys that were on name brand, switched to generic, started losing the hair, went back on name brand, and everything came back. And, I've just seen it too many times to know that it's not an issue. But, again, the majority of guys out there, it's fine. You can go from name brand to finasteride. You save a few bucks and you still save your hair. So I'm not surprised, but I am happy to hear this.
Well, I'll tell you how much a fanatic I am, though, and I don't know if I told you guys this story, but I actually went to San Francisco without. I didn't bring any finasteride, and I had not. I usually take it, about once a week, but I had forgotten to take it, and it was going on like 12. I don't know, almost, close to 2 weeks. And I was like, holy shit, I got to get my hands on some finasteride. So I called my doctor, had him call into to a local pharmacy, call in the prescription. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this. I go to the pharmacy. All they have was generic. And I was freaking out. I'm like, oh man, I've never gone this long without taking my pill. Up to 2 weeks, you're usually pretty good because it takes about that long for your DHT levels to go back to where they were at baseline. And I've been on the drug for so long that it probably wouldn't have affected me, but I was still concerned. I had the choice to take that generic or get in a cab and go all the way across town in San Francisco traffic to another drugstore, the only one that had Proscar. And I made the decision to take that cab ride.
Oh, wow.
So
I'd be the same way. When I look, I actually got a box of generic by mistake from my pharmacist because they assume, naturally, so that people were fine with generics because it'll save them money.
Right.
And so I didn't even look in the bag. I've been going to the same place for years, right? And I get home, which is about a half-hour drive, and I just put it in my medicine cabinet. Didn't even look at it. And the next morning, I get the box, and I'd already opened it. Such a natural routine for me.
Sure.
I didn't even bother looking at it. And I looked at the pill. I'm like, there's something different here. And I looked at the box. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell have I done?
Yeah, it's like, and you break out in a cold sweat. I get it.
Yeah, and to me, it's like I look at this imposter in my pill cutter, and I'm like, how dare you? Who are you? I don't know you. Get out of here. And I drove all the way back, and I put on the counter. I said, this is not what I asked for. And they just started laughing. They're like, okay, all right, here you go.
But, listen, but if you're making the conscious decision like TJ, and I certainly, listen, if you can save the money, and again, I would say the vast majority of people who do switch probably have no problem. But the people that contact us are usually people who have problems. That's just the way it is. Those are the guys that are out there vocal, who are vocal online, and the guys that take the time to pick up the phone and call me or Joe or contact me through, the show or through through one of our online resources.
Well, Spencer, can I ask you this? To my understanding, the difference between generic finasteride and brand name Propecia are the inactive ingredients. That's the only differences that I'm aware of.
And we got to emphasize that we're aware of.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, that may be the underlying rationale to this question, because my question was going to be, if the only difference is the inactive ingredient or are the inactive ingredients, and people, there's some men who have negative effects switching from brand name to a generic. Doesn't that then suggest that the inactive ingredients are in fact playing some sort of role?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Look, TJ, look, I don't know if you heard this before. I was talking to Spencer about this on a show, I think a few months ago. I had someone come in to speak to me for consultation probably 2 years ago, and he was a pharmacist. He had his own small chain of pharmacies in a different region, and he flew in to have a consultation, and I brought this issue up, and I'm telling him my theory based on observations, and he's just sitting there looking at me while I'm talking about this. And when I finished, he said, "You're absolutely correct." I was like, "Wow, okay, do tell." And he said, "Well, I got a story for you." Like, all right. He said, well, not a story, but he said a comparison. He said one of the top most prescribed drugs in history is Lipitor. And for Lipitor to be Lipitor, it had 52 patents on its existence. And then the patents ran out. And for the generics to qualify as a quote-unquote generic equivalent, they only had to crack, I think it was like 13 or 17 of the patents to be able to present themselves as a equivalent generic. And that alone was just mind-blowing to me.
It is, and that's, it's significant. I mean, just think about that. Think about...
A third of the patents are utilized for something that's supposed to be the equivalent.
But, with all that said, listen, the guy that called in before, I think his name was Mike. If it's not Mike, forgive me. He takes generic finasteride. He's doing great on it. TJ, if you would have noticed the difference, you've been on it for 3 months, you're having the same effect. So stick to what you can get the generic from McAndrews, and I'm sure you're going to do just fine. And there are plenty of people who will. But for whatever reason, for some guys, it's the way that it is. So for me, it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't fuck with it. Believe me, I wouldn't mind saving some money.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a compelling dollar value. But let me ask you, for those men that do say that the switch to generic is creating fouls of some sort, what are they complaining about? Are they saying their hair continuing to fall out? Is it something else?
It's not continuing. Actually, what normally happens is they go through like a wicked shed.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Right. Just like they would if they had stopped cold turkey to begin with.
Okay.
It's the same effect. And of course there are variations of that to lesser degrees, but that's the issue that I've run into over the past several years where, since the generic has been available, where some patients would call me up and say, Joe, my ProScar stopped working. I'm like, what are you talking about? It doesn't just stop working. What do you mean? Well, my hair just started falling out like, in a noticeable amount over a short period of time. And scratching my head and thinking about it for a while, narrowing it down with a bunch of questions. What's different? What have you done different? And finally the answer was, well, I switched to this generic version. And that was my first realization of what was going on. This was about 6 years. Whenever the generics came out, it was probably about 6 or maybe 12 months after. And I got my first call about it. And being a generic was the furthest thing from my mind. Never even occurred to me until I spent probably half an hour on the phone with him, asking him question after question, trying to narrow this down because it was bugging the hell out of me. How could this be happening? And then after that, it just didn't stop. Call here, call there, and it's a fairly. In the past year, I've probably had one conversation every 2 weeks.
But again, TJ, you shouldn't be concerned about it because honestly, from what I have known from the people who have contacted us over the years, it usually happens within like a 30-day period. So, I mean, you're not having any adverse side effects. You're not having any shedding. I'm sure you're just fine. So just, you're saving some money. Good for you.
No doubt whatsoever. And, one additional thing I thought of is, look, I've had 3 hair transplants totaling something like 5,000 grafts. So I'm wondering if the hair that I was going to lose has basically been lost and if the Propecia or Finasteride is basically producing a net zero effect. In other words, there's no hair to lose anyway.
Right.
So I thought that might be a possibility too.
It is a possibility, but the truth is, I mean, I think it's important for guys who have had, and again, I'm not a physician, but I think it's important for guys who have had hair transplants to continue using finasteride because the hair that was moved, no matter what any clinic says or any physician says, it could still be sensitive to DHT as you get older, and you can still have miniaturization, and it's possible that even the hair that was transplanted might be susceptible to miniaturization even at your age, and you're relatively young. So, I mean, I do think that if there was going to be some difference, you would see some difference, whether it's in the donor zone or the sides of your scalp. There would be some difference. So, I think you're just one of those guys who are doing well in generics.
Yeah.
Which are the majority of the guys out there, as far as we know.
That's right. Listen,
cool.
TJ, man, I'm glad you called. I'm going to really fire through some calls really quickly before we close up shop. It's great to know that you're still listening.
Oh, yeah, as often as I could while I'm sitting in traffic. And it was great talking to you too, Joe, and you too, Spencer.
All right, man. And listen, how's the girl? Everything's good? You guys getting married? What's going on?
She's starting to throw that question out there, but I'm not there yet myself.
All right. Well, listen, enjoy it. Just have fun.
All right, guys.
All right, man. You take care. Take care. All right. People asking for Joe, but I don't see his number on the line. And I may have hung up on Joe Tillman. So Joe Tillman called back. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Spencer Artista here.
Oh my God, how are you, man? We just lost Joe Tillman. Joe Tillman, call back.
Yeah, please, Joe. Please do call back. I'd love to talk to him again.
Yeah. Oh, he did call back. Okay. So let me make sure you're still on the line. I'll pot up Joe. Make sure he's on the line. You're back, Joe. Sorry, I hung up on you.
Hi, Joe.
Hello?
Hey, Joe.
Yeah, it's Dave. Dave Artista here.
Oh, hey, Dave. How you doing, buddy? Sorry, my other phone was ringing. I got distracted. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine. How have you been? I think you made a great move. I think you did.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Congratulations to you. Yeah.
So what's happening? Anything to add to the show tonight, Dave, before we close up shop?
Yeah, first of all, I think they misspelled the artist system. It's supposed to be the artista system, right?
Yeah, maybe you should contact them about that.
Well, everybody was talking about generic finasteride, right?
Yeah.
Seems to be. Yeah, you know my experience. I've been on it for 13 months now. Dr. Reedy's generic, and it's been doing a great job. I'm going to be posting photos on the forum, as I said, and I'll be a lot more active on the forum, too.
Well, you know what? You're a positive force on the forum, and I think it's important that, guys like you are out there, especially guiding the younger guys and kind of, interjecting some sanity into what can be a very insane and frankly, just an unhealthy environment.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know what I like about
I did like trying to help.
Is that
I'm sorry.
What I like about Artista is that you represent what's good about the forums. You represent the way the forums should be and the way they used to be,
right?
To a large extent, where you, I don't recall ever seeing a negative word under your name posted. You are always supportive. You are always upbeat and positive. And you don't get into this nasty mix that some people get into. And I just like to say thank you for that, because it's just always nice to read your posts. It's always it's always positive.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that's why I'm going to get back onto it. I've purposely been staying off the forum for a while, mostly because I've had so many things to do in my life. I think Spencer knows.
Hair does that.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's good. You want to get away from the internet. You want to live your life. I was thinking about this the other day. I was actually talking to Common Law about it, and Common Law is she's a lot younger than me, but she still was born in a time and grew up in a time when there was no internet. And we were talking about just how free life was, how, we didn't have to take a fucking, selfie at a restaurant or take a picture of our food or, we were just able to live our lives and not be afraid. Like, I'm actually a little paranoid. We go to restaurants if someone happens to, I think I don't know what that was. If someone happens to, sound like Skype, if someone happens to, recognize me, I'm worried that, people take, they're going to take your image. It's going to be, out at some, put on some blog somewhere, Kobren's drunk again, whatever, these are things that go through your mind.
Right.
And, getting away from it.
For website.
Say that again?
I just got an idea for a website.
Kobrensdrunkagain.com. But,
Sorry.
it's, There's a certain freedom, just put down your phone. Those phones like for old people, I think they're called the jitterbugs.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I'm thinking about getting one of those. Just get rid of the iPhone.
My wife was saying you should get one. Not you, me.
Yeah, I figured.
Get one. Yeah.
Just get rid of the iPhone, man. Just stop. I don't need to be connected. I can join AARP in a year and I can get a discount on that phone. And that's it. It's big numbers. It's a phone. That's all you need.
Well, what? I was having this exact same conversation with piano keys. That's my reference for my wife. She's a pianist, and she and I were talking. She also is on that threshold, right? She remembers before the internet, and I was telling her it's like when we were kids. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have these big honking phones. I remember, earlier we were trying to get them as small as possible. Now we're trying to get them as big as possible.
Right. It's like headphones.
No helmet. Helmets weren't required when we rode our bikes. There wasn't a damn law for that. I
grew up in New York
running
City.
around barefoot.
I grew up in New York City, and we had our playground was on concrete. There wasn't even rubber mats.
I know, yeah.
In Chicago, yeah.
and what we did as kids or as young adults to entertain ourselves was go out and get as dirty as possible and break shit and just have fun.
Yeah, now, set plastic things on fire, whatever,
Oh my God. I remember that. I love doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
We have so much.
But it's amazing, how things have changed, and for better or for worse, we do have the internet, and it's just going to become more and more entwined in our lives. But I do miss those days for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely do, and it's a really everyone is competing on Twitter. It's such a narcissistic society now. With there's this one person I actually had to finally defriend her. She friended me on Facebook, and all she does is put up selfies. And she's a very attractive woman. But every day it's a new selfie, Monday selfie, Tuesday selfie. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. With the selfies, we all know you're beautiful.
Her job is to give you a little bit of joy every morning when you wake up and you see a new selfie.
It's vulgar. I can't even look at it. Anyway, listen, guys, we're gonna wrap things up. You know what? I think Joe is actually on hold. I think I see his phone number. So let me try to put all of you on pot up at the same time, and we can take Joe if this is Joe. Joe, is that you?
Spencer, I'm absolutely devastated. Your production staff has left me on hold for over an hour.
I'm so sorry. I can only see a certain amount of numbers in this tiny screen, and two of the numbers that I could see are the numbers that are potted up, and then one extra number, and then I just see the lights. And I didn't see your number the whole night until just now.
I've been on hold.
Well, I'm glad you're on, Joe.
8:47 p.m.
Well, all right. So let's go. We got a couple of minutes. Talk to me.
Let me give you the news first, and I have to discuss something about Dave, if you don't mind.
All right, hold on for 1 second.
Sure.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like to may reiterate it?
My name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
All right, Joe. Now we're ready for you, man.
All right. I know you're.
Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave. So can you give me 3 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. First of all, the study. Did you get the email I sent you?
I got the email you sent me, and I appreciate you sending me the email to link to that thread. And you're absolutely right. What you talked about last 2 weeks ago on the program was accurate, and obviously there is more of an autoimmune connection to male pattern baldness than a lot of us may have thought in the past.
So, in other words, this new drug that is having remarkable results in sufferers of alopecia areata, and I emphasize these words, can possibly work in male pattern baldness sufferers. So don't discount this drug yet.
Right. The only issue that we're going to come up against is obviously there's going to be a greater risk of pretty significant adverse side effects. And I think maybe for the guys who are not doing well on finasteride, who are extremely desperate, who really understand the entire risk-benefit ratio, There might be some doctors who kind of, maybe put them on a lower dosage of these medications and kind of try to incorporate it into their regimen. But that's not going to be for a while. I don't think there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be willing to prescribe these medications off-label for male pattern baldness, at least not right now.
Well, my doctor would, so
Well, you got a Dr. Vinny Boombots, so.
All right, my second piece of news is that I have a personal thing about Dave. Give me 2 more minutes. I know you have time constraints. My second thing is Allergen has announced in the fourth quarter of 2014, which you're presently in, at any time, any day, could be a month, could be 2 weeks, could be today, tomorrow. They will announce the results of the Phase B2 trials by Myoprost, the strong formulation, which is 1,000% stronger than the previous formulation, which they experimented a year ago, which, according to David Picott, Chief Executive Officer of Allergen Corporation, had results equal to Rogaine and Propecia, and that was totally unacceptable to him. He wanted a product which
I just need to interject something right now. It's ridiculous how lucid and sober you sound today. It's insane. You're like a different person. It's basically like someone came into your home and took all the marbles out of your mouth.
Well,
that's a good thing, Joe.
Thank you, Dave. Well, when I do the show, I promised myself to ingest exclusively water, no pharmaceutical agents or alcohol.
It's amazing. I mean, Joe Tillman, do you notice a difference, or is it just me?
I notice a big difference. It's a joy to hear Joe on the phone. Very, very clear and precise. How you been, Joe?
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Well, I don't know how I castigate you for not calling me anymore. We do our daily multiple emails.
That's not Dave. That was Joe Tillman, your friend Joe Tillman.
Joe Tillman's on the air?
Yeah.
I'm talking to Joe Tillman?
Yeah.
You are.
You don't sound exactly alike.
How you
been, Joe?
Dave Artista and Joe Tillman are on the air. You're all three on the air.
Oh, hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe. Let me get back to me and Dave Artista. We're very dear friends. We're having a kind of lovers quarrel. Can you settle this for me once for all?
Sure.
Because on a daily basis, I can't take it anymore. I'm ready to freak out. Okay. Many people know I'm affiliated with you in the show, and they consider me a quasi-hair loss expert. Back in 1998. This has gone on for years. Okay?
Okay.
Now, as you know, I'm not a physician. I've put several people on Propecia, about 15 to 20 people.
Right.
Like 12 cops and family members.
You mean you suggested that they speak to a doctor about getting a prescription for Propecia?
Right. I didn't write the prescriptions. I'm not a physician.
Right.
And they all got prescriptions. Okay? And I also put them on Rogaine. And they've had no results. Okay? That's neither here nor there. I agree there's a certain segment of the hair loss population where Propecia does not work. That's a fact, right? Am I right or wrong?
Right. Well, we know clinically, at least 14% of those who used it during clinical trials had no positive response.
All right. But the point I'm trying to make is, why did these people attack me personally when they had no results? This is what me and Dave have been discussing. Why did they attack me? Like my own nephew wants to kill me. He's threatening to kill me now.
Well, because maybe your nephew is unwell, or maybe he just doesn't like you personally, or whatever. I mean, what do you? I'm hoping that he doesn't sound, and I don't know the guy, and he can be. Maybe I'm wrong, but from how you describe him, he doesn't sound, at least at this stage in his life, like he's thinking rationally when it comes to, what he's dealing with, because he was very upset about his hair loss and things didn't work out for him.
How was the efficacy of it presented when you told him to get on it?
Joe hung up. Joe he can call back.
He hung up?
I don't know if he hung up or if he got cut off, but he's not there anymore. So Joe called back. I didn't touch the phone, so don't blame me. I think maybe his nephew has something to do with it.
He found him.
Yeah, I don't. Do you really have conversations like this with him, Dave? I mean, is this for real?
Yeah, he was. We were having email conversations about this, and he was telling me that he had had 15 people go on Propecia, and none of them got any results from it. And
but did you hear Did you hear my opening today? That talking about like your most valuable assets, and one of your most really, to me, there's the two most valuable assets we have is our time and our health. And you actually spend time talking to Joe from Staten Island about this shit.
Well, I feel compelled to respond. When he sends me an email about something, I got to respond. Come on, Spence.
Well, you could respond and say, you know what, I'm really not interested in this stuff. Let's talk about something else that's a little bit more interesting.
Well, that's true. You're right about that, and I'll have to try that next time.
Like, you'll contact me once in a while, and I'll just give you like a one-line response because I don't feel like going through a whole fucking thing, and you get it.
Yeah, I do. It's no problem.
Yeah. All right, let's see if this is Joe, and then we're gonna wrap things up. Joe, what happened? You hung up on us? You were upset? What happened?
No, of course I hang up. I was physically disconnected through the cellular universe.
Oops.
All right, so things are taking a really bizarre turn right now for the show. So let's wrap things up.
Why is that? I gave positive news out to the viewers.
Well, that was positive. I'm talking about your nephew and all these people who have not done well in finasteride. Who knows why they're blaming you? There's no reason for them to blame you. It's a medication. I mean, if you presented it to them like most people would, like, look, this can work for you. It may not work for you. Give it a shot.
Maybe they're taking generic.
Spencer,
Just kidding.
Just kidding. And Spencer, there are some guys that might get a little bit of positive results, but being that it's not a full head of hair, they'll just dismiss it completely, right?
Well, and
that's a good point.
And that's a very good point. I think that a lot of guys think that, to me, the miracle of finasteride is just slowing or stopping the progression of your hair loss. Before finasteride, nothing like that. It just didn't exist. Minoxidil, in my view, is really just a Band-Aid. And to be able to stop the progression or slow it for years or even decades, it's a miracle in itself. But for a lot of guys who've lost a lot of ground already, if they don't see any regrowth, they think it's not working.
Right.
So you're a guy, you actually, and I hope that it's okay that I'm voicing this because I don't think it's a secret, but you actually intimated that you're a little concerned about posting some of your images because even though you've had tremendous results, you're not sure if everyone else is going to think that because people expect people who have good results to have a full head of hair, or at least the young guys do.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me, and then I responded, you were right. I shouldn't have to be concerned about that at all. It is what it is. I will post photos.
Well, you should, because you're a great example of a guy that looks like he has more hair, even though it's not a lot more hair.
It's a visible difference. And let me tell you, there will be some people that say, why waste your time? But those are the people that are also sitting there, and they got nothing better to do than to hate. Because,
right.
You're seeing a difference. I remember I think you posted pictures before, right?
Yeah.
Do I remember seeing the improvement? Yeah. So, I see the improvement.
The fact that you're able to leave the house without your hat, and awesome. You're able to go out socially and feel more comfortable in your own skin now, that speaks volumes. And it's all because you decided to take this drug. And, granted, you took it a little later in life, but you were one of those who were kind of turned off by what was being written about it online.
Mm-hmm.
But stuff wasn't being written about that line in 1998 when it first came out. This is a recent occurrence, Spencer, the last couple of years. Am I correct?
I would say it really started around 2004, 2005, and then it exploded.
Yeah, but when the drug initially came out in 1998, we never heard of these things. Initially, we were on the air.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It actually all started with one small group of people, and then it exploded. It was actually one person, and then they developed this little group of guys that kind of like try to infiltrate every possible outlet. And they did a great job. I have to say, they got their message out there, man.
Well, it's an easy message to get out. You take this pill, stuff, your junk's going to fall off. Basically, is
Right.
what they're saying. So who wouldn't be scared of that? It's going to spread like wildfire.
But if you look at some sites like, I think it's RX Check, or there's one site, it's like an RX review site, where if you go up until about 2004, 2005, you would hear every once in a while, you would see an adverse effect from Propecia or Proscar, sexual side effect. And then around 2005, it was like an avalanche. Like all of a sudden, it's just like, and how is that even reasonable? It's because they decided to focus on these sites to get their message out there. And hey, look, it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. And again, I want to make it clear that I believe the message needs to be out there, that these side effects do occur in a small subset of guys.
Very small, in my opinion.
I agree. Listen.
And that happens with most medications.
Happens with all medications. Not most.
Yeah, aspirin can kill you. And aspirin could put your body in anaphylactic shock, causing immediate death.
That's right. That's right. All right. So listen,
there you go.
I'm gonna. It's 18 minutes after the hour. I know Andrew Zarian actually has another broadcast that he has to syndicate at 1/2 the hour. So I got to get off the air.
Could you just give Andrew a message from me, please, Spencer?
Can I what?
Could you just give your producer Andrew a message from me?
Sure.
To stop spreading rumors on other shows that I was a paid actor.
No, he's not spreading rumors, but you know what? People believe that.
No, he thought it was. He posed that question to you when he stayed over your house.
Well, no. People, and there are actually a lot of guys on the GFQ network who actually thought that like you were just like this brilliant actor, and that like it was the best gimmick, that was out there.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right, dude. All right, guys. Listen, I want to thank Joe from Staten Island, Dave Artista. You guys connect. Talk amongst yourselves at some point. Joe Tillman, thanks again for calling.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Sorry.
All right, we'll talk soon. All right.
Yeah, Joe Tillman, it was great to hear you and everybody
Good night,
else. Spencer, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Andrew Zarian's going nuts through Skype now. I got to get off the air. Guys, I want to thank everybody for obviously calling in, tuning in. It was a great show tonight. Very busy. We'll start announcing the live shows like we did tonight through Twitter and on baldtruthtalk.com. Check out our websites. Of course, you can check out archives of this broadcast on thebaldtruth.com. Also, check out guysfromqueens.com. You can see archives of this broadcast and other GFQ broadcasts. If you are considering doing anything about your hair loss, please check out the American Hair Loss Association at americanhairloss.org. If you're considering surgery, place to go is IAHS.org, the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. And if you want to interact with other hair loss sufferers, you can check out our message forum at baldtruthtalk.com. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.